normal ass colored beer.
There's something satisfying about hearing a beer pour, you know? Hey, it's Megan.
And Sue,
The Spine Breakers. We have a very exciting announcement.
Yeah, you might have noticed that our channel art is different and cooler.
Much cooler. So our
Much cooler.
super cool friend, Megan,
From Tome Infinity, the channel Tome Infinity.
was delightful enough to come up with some really, really fucking cool channel art for us.
Yeah, and I gave her like a idea of like I want it to look like a metal band, so it's kind of Iron Maiden-esque, as you can see.
Totally.
And then she came up with the idea of doing us as zombies, kind of like Nnedi, the Iron Maiden mascot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super cool. I love it. I hope you guys like it, and thank you, Megan, for doing that for us. It's so cool. And we'll put Megan's information down below. She's a very talented artist, as you can see.
Yeah, she did incredible work. Like, I was endlessly impressed by her work.
Yeah.
Like, it looks so, so good.
Yeah, so if you want some channel art done, hit her up.
Hit Megan up.
I'm sure that she could work something out.
Yeah, she's incredible. So talk to her about that, and
super cool. I'm also
10 out of 10.
probably gonna change our intro song, which we've always had the same intro song.
it's time for a change.
But I want it to be like metal, you
Yeah.
know? So I'm gonna change it.
That'd be awesome. Do it to it. Yeah, so we have a new updated look. Thanks,
New
Megan.
and improved.
New and improved.
Spine breaker.
Still same Megan and Susan goodness.
Same old bitches.
Same old bitches. And today we are doing a July/Fuckathon wrap-up.
Yup.
Yup.
Fuckathon was the readathon that we did throughout the entire month.
While we do this, we're going to drink this very strange sounding beer.
Yeah, I got it just because it sounded so weird and I wanted to try it. It's called Palate Trip, and it's a sour India Pale Ale.
And I don't know how that works, but I'm interested to find out.
I feel like it's, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, it's probably mean of me to get this because these are like your two least favorite styles of beer.
But I like IPAs now, so that's a good thing.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
It says it's tart and hoppy, and it's from 8 Wired, which is from New Zealand, I guess. Yep.
Interesting.
Bottled and brewed at 8 Wired Brewing Company, Warkworth, New Zealand. Warkworth?
I'm intrigued.
I'm intrigued and
confused
frightened.
and concerned. Yeah, it smells kind of good to me.
Yeah, it's not, doesn't smell bad.
Oh, that's weird.
Oh, that's very sour. Oh man, like lockjaw sour. I don't taste IPA at all. The sour is just overpowering. I don't necessarily dislike it, but it's not something I would want to drink a whole lot of. It's really sour.
Woo!
So the Fuckathon was hosted by Noria Reed, so we'll put her information below. Yeah, we're just gonna go through the books and say what prompt they filled. So the first book that I finished was Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, which is about this woman who's looking back on her childhood growing up in this boarding school, and it's the kids that go there are special. And I won't say much more than that. But I counted this for the challenge of fuck classism, because they're kind of, the kids that go to the school don't really have any opportunity to do anything but
serve the upper class.
Right. So
in their way.
yeah. And it was really good. I don't know why I put off reading it for so long, because it was a pretty quick read, and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars.
Nice. Did you have that thing at the end where you had to just kind of like take a second?
Kind of. It wasn't as devastating as I was anticipating. I think I'm just getting to be dead inside though. Because like,
yeah,
I don't cry as much. I used to cry so easily in books, and I don't that much anymore. I cry spontaneously over nothing instead.
I am not a crier. Like, I don't cry over much at all. And it takes a lot to get me to cry in a book, but there are certain like triggers that I'll cry over every time. It's so sour.
It's so sour.
It's so sour.
And it does have a bit of hoppiness to it.
It does. It's a weird flavor.
It's very strange.
Yeah. It's unique. Mm-hmm. So the first book I finished was Vox by Christina Dalcher. And this I read for Fuck the Patriarchy. And This is a female-centric dystopian novel in which women can only speak 100 words a day, and they wear these devices on their wrists that count the words that they say, and if they exceed 100, it shocks them, it zaps them. And the more you go over 100, the more severe the shock is. And so it's pretty intense. But the woman who is the main character of the story is a PhD, and I think she's a PhD, not an MD. She's a doctor of some kind. And they end up needing her to help them with this project, and so she actually gets to take her counter off and help them with this thing. And so shit occurreth. But I was a little disappointed in the ending of this book. I thought the book was really good, but the ending I felt was like a little bit lackluster for me and a little bit too neat and tidy.
The next book I read, I counted for Fuck Racism, and I read Home, or Binti Home, by Nnedi Okorafor, which is the second book in the Binti trilogy. This one, as the title would suggest, has Binti coming home. And then shit occurreth.
Shit occurreth, yeah.
Yeah, but there's definitely a lot about racism in here. Binti's people are looked down upon by the lighter-skinned people, and then Binti's people look down on darker-skinned people than they are. So, okay. Yeah, but I enjoyed this one. I liked it better than the first book, Binti. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars as well, I think.
Nice. So the next book I finished was American War by Omar Akkad. And I read this for the prompts of fuck pollution, fuck abuse. Yeah, those are the 2 prompts. So, and this book did kind of slow me down a little bit. Not because it wasn't good, but it was kind of brutal and it was just kind of slow, I think. But this is about this girl who is 6 when the Second American Civil War breaks out in the near future, so like 2074. The state that she's from is Louisiana, and it's half underwater because global warming has changed the geography of the United States. And so Florida, all of Florida, I think, is underwater, and they call it like the Florida Sea because it's just all gone. And then there are certain areas that are uninhabitable above ground because it's so hot. So these are things that contributed to the Second Civil War, but I will say that like it wasn't discussed in detail other than fossil fuels are outlawed. And that was kind of a thing throughout the book. The character, Sarat is her name. Her name is Sarah T. Chestnut, but she likes the way Sarat sounds. And I think someone called her that on accident. And so it's just about her growing up and how the Second Civil War changed her and affected the way that she thinks about things, and then kind of the choices that she made to contribute to that cause. And so, you know, she and others in the book undergo a lot of abuse and some pretty brutal shit. So it was a good book. It was thought-provoking. I won't say I enjoyed it, because a lot of it was like not super enjoyable.
Right.
But it was thought-provoking, and I think I gave it 4 stars.
So the next book I finished actually wasn't for any of the challenges, but it was an audiobook called Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. And it was my book club's pick for the month of July. Otherwise, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have read it. However, I did enjoy it.
Nice.
Surprisingly, I did enjoy it, even though like I usually try to avoid fiction on audio because it just doesn't work well for me a lot of the time. But even though I don't think the audiobook, I mean, the narrator did a good job, but she almost made the main character sound like a cartoon.
Oh.
And so, yeah, but despite all of that, I still really enjoyed the story, and it was really compelling. It's about a girl who, when she's a child, her mother leaves, and then she's left, her siblings all leave as well. She lives out in the swamp in, somewhere in the south.
Somewhere southern.
I don't, no, maybe it was North Carolina. I think it was North Carolina. But anyway, so basically she's left, she gets abandoned by her entire family. And she's a little girl living on her own in the swamp. It flips back and forth through time for when she's a child to the present day in the book. where a man is murdered and they're trying to figure out who murdered him. I guess that's all I'll say.
Okay.
And I was spoiled for the ending because I didn't finish the book before our book club meeting. So they all talked about it. But I still enjoyed the book. I probably would have enjoyed it more if I hadn't been spoiled, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. But then I recently saw an article saying that, like, which it was clear that, like, the author wrote herself into the character some because she, like, lived out in the wilderness by herself for a long time, I guess. Or her and her husband lived in Africa, I think, but...
Oh, wow.
Apparently there was, like, a case of a poacher being killed, and I think her husband was, like, a suspect, and so it was just, like, very... I read an article, like, yesterday or something about it that was, like...
Well, you know what? Kill the poachers.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't...
Kill them.
Honestly, I didn't feel that bad about it, but it was like, maybe there's some similarities between this murder that happens in the book
and the actual murder which occurred.
So that's interesting, but yeah, I liked it.
So the next book that I finished was We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Mejia? Sure. Mejia? I don't know. So this was a YA novel, and I read this for the challenge of Fuck Heteronormativity. So read a book that is queer AF. So it is about the society where men have 2 wives. One of them helps them run the household, and the other one is like the sensual one who brings them pleasure and bears their children. And so it's about this woman who is the woman who helps run the household, and she ends up in a forbidden love situation, and shit occurreth.
The next book I read was Binti, The Night Masquerade by Nnedi Okorafor, which is the last book in that trilogy. And I read it for Fuck the Patriarchy, because the main character definitely does things that women aren't supposed to do in her society. So I don't want to say much about the plot since it is the 3rd in a series.
Right.
I really enjoyed this one as well. I think it was on par with Home. I gave it 4 stars. So overall I thought the series was good, even though the first book was like kind of to me. But the second 2 books were really good.
So the next book I finished was Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It was very reminiscent to me of Octavia Butler, but I do agree with Sue that it was like a lot in a little. You know, it was just a whole lot of stuff happened in a really short period of time, but I did enjoy it. So I'm going to continue on with the series.
The next book I finished was Less by Andrew Sean Greer. And I read this for the challenge of Fuck Heteronormativity. And this is about a man, he's like in his 50s, he's kind of a not super successful writer. And he gets an invitation to his ex-boyfriend's wedding. And he doesn't want to go, but he also doesn't want to decline and like not have a reason because then it seems like he's bothered.
Right.
So he decides that to avoid it, and he will accept all of these offers he's had to do things around the world, like to come speak at this conference or do whatever. And so he just accepts all of everything. And so he goes on this trip around the world doing all these things. He makes a lot of discoveries about himself and about his relationships. And
nice.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I kind of binge read it. I like read it in the night because I was just really into it for some reason. I believe I also gave it 4 stars overall, but I thought it was really good, and it was just a nice feel-good story.
That sounds fun. I want to read it. Yeah. That sounds fun. So the next book I finished was Patternmaster by Octavia E. Butler, the queen herself. God rest her soul. Whatever. That was the last book in the Patternist series. I really liked it. You could tell it was her first novel, I think, because the dialogue was more stilted than even in her later works. But I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really dug it. And I read that for Fuck Classism.
I actually DNF'd a book this month, and I don't remember what, I might have it in the wrong order, but I was going to read How Evan Broke His Head and Other Stories by Garth Stein for the challenge of fuck ableism, because the main character has epilepsy. However, I read about half of it, and I was just like, nah.
No.
It wasn't bad, it was just really cliche. The characters and this plot, I felt, were just very cliche and boring, and I was like, I don't see this getting above like a 3-star rating for me.
So what's the
So
point?
I was like, I'm not gonna waste my time finishing it. So I DNF'd it, and unfortunately I did not finish another book for that challenge. That's the only challenge that I did not complete for Fuckathon.
Now that I'm looking at this, I think it's the only one I didn't complete.
Really?
Yeah.
I found it like weirdly difficult to find a book for that. And I was trying to find books that I already owned because I want to read my shelves.
Same.
And I started the book White is for Witching, which the main character has pica, or one of the main characters has pica, which I think would count for that as well, but I didn't finish it.
So if you guys have any recommendations for good books, that feature a main character who has a disability, let us know, because we both struggled with that. So the last book that I read was Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, which I've just, as we've been sitting here talking, realized that it probably counts for fuck ageism. Because they're old as shit.
Yes, but you're supposed to find something where like age is...
It is a central feature of the story, you know, because the one dude, Antonio Banderas with the wiggy wig, he's like centuries old, and that's a hard thing for him. And also,
that's true, actually, because he had a hard time with...
Lestat goes crazy because he can't deal with the modernization of so.
That's true.
But then also I felt like maybe it counted for fuck realism, because I don't really know the line where fantasy begins. Yeah,
I would say it could be like in a subgenre that it would fit into.
Yeah, so I think it kind of counts for that. I'm not super worried about it because I didn't meet all the challenges anyway, so like I didn't fully succeed regardless. But yeah, I talked about it in our vlog for Reading Rush, so I won't talk about it too much. But it was a fun little read. The book was terrible, or the movie was terrible. I mean, the book was fine. I gave it 3 stars. I probably will not continue with the series because I just don't care that much about vampires.
Yeah.
To be honest, like, it's not that the book wasn't interesting, because it was. I just really don't.
Vampires aren't your thing?
No, give me zombies or ghosts, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not my deal.
I think I'd rather do vampires than ghosts. I like vampires better than ghosts.
I didn't know that I liked ghosts until I read Horror Store. And I was like, and I read Hex also. And I was like...
I guess I haven't read a whole lot of ghost stories. I tried to read Heart-Shaped Box, and I DNF'd that one as well because it was boring. But
you should try Hex and see if you like it. I would recommend that, and then Horror Store was fun. But
so next I listened to another audiobook, and it was The Uninhabitable Earth, Life After Warming by David Wallace-Wells, which is a nonfiction book about how fucked up the world's gonna be if we don't do something about climate change, aka global warming, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it, yeah.
Pretty much immediately. Yeah, he talks about just everything, all the shit that will go wrong. Because, I mean, I think it's evident that, like, our weather patterns are already changing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Have already changed.
Yeah.
But he mentioned that Tornado Alley is moving.
Shifting.
Yeah, it's shifting towards us.
Yeah.
And a huge tornado hit Joplin a few years ago.
A few years back.
Killed like 160 people or something.
And it did millions of dollars in like damage.
And then a tornado, I think, hit Joplin again this year.
It did.
But it didn't do nearly, I don't think it killed anyone, and it didn't do nearly as much damage. But yeah, Joplin usually did not get hit with tornadoes this often. So yeah, he talks about that, and
that's interesting.
And just how the oceans will rise. Temperatures will get so hot that some places will be uninhabitable, and et cetera, et cetera.
Like in American War.
Yeah. And how it's affecting, the places it'll affect the most quickly are the places that, like, we're basically fucking those places over. Like the Middle East.
Right.
You know, because it's going to get really fucking hot there.
Yeah. It's already hot there, and it's going to get uninhabitably hot.
But I ended up giving it 3 stars. I just thought it was kind of got like repetitive, I felt.
I feel like books like that kind of have a tendency to get preachy. And like, just give me the facts and like scare me a little bit, but like, don't be preachy, you know?
Yeah.
If you give me the facts, that will convince me. You don't have to preach, you know? So.
Yeah, and then you don't have any more books, do you?
I don't.
Okay, well I still have a few. So the next one I read was Old Man's War by John Scalzi, and this was for the Fuck Ageism Challenge, because it's set in a somewhat near future, I think, where once you reach the age of 75, you can join the military, basically, and go fight this space war. And the people of Earth don't really know what's going on. Like, they don't know what this war entails or anything. But so this is about a man who goes and joins the military, and he gets put into like a young body. They put them into these weird young clone bodies of themselves.
They're enhanced.
Yeah, and so now he's suddenly in a young body and super athletic and strong and like in the best shape he's ever been in, but he's still a 75-year-old man inside.
Right.
And I enjoyed this. I didn't love it. Like, I thought I would like it more, I think, but I still really liked it. And I might continue the series. I don't know, I'm not like chomping at the bit to read the next one or anything. But it was fun, it was interesting. 4 stars, I think.
I thought it was a super fun read. And the rest of the series is fun too. Like the second book, it doesn't have John Perry in it, the main character in that one.
Interesting.
But the third book does.
Okay.
So, it's interesting.
Yeah, I did kind of get that feeling of like, oh, this unremarkable white man is like so awesome in this book for no reason. But I'll also say that I was not surprised that there was in a book about old people, that there was a character named Susan.
Also, I thought there's a scene where they're like super stoked about their new bodies, and so they just all have sex with each other. And I thought that was really funny.
Yeah,
I was like,
kind of funny. They just like, once they're in their new bodies, they get a period of time where they just get to do whatever they want, and they just fuck like bunnies.
They just fuck like bunnies. Yeah. They're like, we can have sex again. Let's do it. We're hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amusing to me.
All right, so I read 3 more books this month, and they were all books that I read for the Reading Rush, so I already talked about them in that wrap up. So I'm not going to go into any detail, but the first one was Carrie by Stephen King. I enjoyed this. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. Next was Chamiel by Edward Pearson. This was better than I expected it to be, but it still was not that great. I gave it 3 stars, which isn't bad. Then lastly was Girl with a Pearl Earring by Tracy Chevalier, and I loved this. I just have a weird love for this story in general, because I also love the movie. And I gave it 5 stars. So that's it. That's all I read.
So yeah, we had pretty good reading months.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty satisfied. Was it good for you?
It was so good for me.
This was the best reading month I've had in a while. I've just been in like a continuous year-long slump. I feel like I had a lot of changes happen in my life toward the end of last year, and I really haven't like completely found my equilibrium yet. And so I just haven't been reading as much, but I'm getting there, and I had a really good month. So I feel good about it.
I had a really good month too. I will say neither of us finished the group book for Fuckathon, which was Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde, but I was listening to it on audiobook, and I have since finished it. I also felt like it was kind of repetitive.
Okay.
A lot of her essays had she said some of the same things in some of them. But I also think it was like a really important read to like understand intersectional feminism, and especially if you're a white woman, to read it, a white straight woman, especially because Audre Lorde is Black lesbian. If you're, a white cis straight woman, then I think it's important to read books like this to understand
another perspective that you're not like intimately familiar with.
Right. And to learn that like other women have different experiences than you do.
Right.
It's not all about you.
Ain't all about you, girl.
White woman.
White woman, me, Megan. Not all about you, Megan.
Susan. My name's
Not all Susans!
My name's already a meme, so
Not all Susans.
I get it. Okay.
I'm surprised mine isn't, because it was like the it name of the 80s for white girls.
So in like 10 or 20 years, Megan probably will be a meme. But right now, it's Susan. Actually, I haven't really seen Susan as much anymore. It's more Karen. I like to say Deborah.
Deborah.
Barbara.
Oh, Barbara.
Why don't we come up with a man one? Why don't this? What is
Right.
it? Well, there's
Richard.
There's the Kyle one that's been going around.
That one tickles me
Yeah.
so much. No, I think we need like a Richard.
Yeah, Richard. Anyway, that was our July/Fuckathon wrap up. This beer is like, I don't dislike it, but I wouldn't drink it again.
I feel like I have to like, every time I go to take a drink, I have to steal my courage and just like.
If you don't like what made me really go like earlier was that I took a drink and then I kind of like pressed my tongue to my palate, and that was like, oh,
It's a lot, yeah.
Oh, it's very sour. So if you like very sour stuff, you might really be into this palate trip. But that's palate trip. The name's very appropriate.
I don't love this.
But I mean, I wouldn't buy it again, but it was an experience.
It has been quite the experience.
Yeah.
And I
don't necessarily regret buying it.
I might regret it later when I poop. But I don't regret it now.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.